Authority, generally, Robert Rules of Order. Like I said, we do have the Sergeant at Arms. The declaration of posting delivery, what that is just proof. Somebody needs to see it. I'll show it to you after the meeting. Proof that we mailed everything to all the homeowners. All that is. I'm going to start off with going through kind of an update to that email I sent to the entire association in January. Talk through the budget. We'll have the open forum. Proceed on. Any questions before I get started? This is what I put out in, part of what I put out in January that are our three biggest challenges. Lake management, specifically Lake Lorraine, even though constant is causing us some heartburn. The reserve fund and legal fees. I'm going to go through each one of those here quickly. Go ahead. If Lake Lorraine last year was an awful mess, and we had a meeting earlier last month to talk about a new experiment. Right now the lake looks fine, but we haven't done anything to fix anything. So more than likely, if we don't do something, it'll end up like it did last year, which was a big mess, and we had to basically close the lake because it was toxic. If you want to read more about toxic algae, there's a handout in the back you can grab. It tells you everything that you'd ever want to know about toxic algae. The lake consultant we used to have has moved on to bigger and better things. We've hired a new company. That looks like it's going to be a pretty good relationship. He's more local than the other company, a little bit smaller group of guys. They've got some pretty good ideas, and they definitely have the energy to help us. We had this meeting last month, and it was a proposal to do this experimental treatment to the lake. Never been done before. The Department of Ecology we did the public meeting. We allowed the public to voice any kind of concerns, questions, whatever. Those were forwarded on to the Department of Ecology. They are in the process right now of figuring out, whether they're going to authorize us a permit or not. I've had no feedback yet to whether things are going well or things are going poorly. If approved, if this experiment is approved, we'll do it in May sometime. It has to do with the weather. The cost of doing this treatment is $7,000. That's the max. And what they'll do is, before the treatment, they'll sample the lake and they'll say, okay, you got this much phosphorus. That means we got to mix up this much stuff to combat that much phosphorus. And the cost will be accordingly. So $7,000 was predicted to be the max cost it would be. If this experiment is not approved, or if it doesn't work, then we'll have to rely on algicide treatments to combat the toxic algae this year. Now, last year we had one treatment, but again, I'm really ignorant on the whole lake chemistry stuff. What happened is we waited too long before we pulled the trigger and said, go do it. And a lot of that, again, was that company of their ability to respond to our request. And so by the time they got here and actually put the algicide in the lake, it was too late. And they did clean the lake up for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, something like that. But then it was right back. And it never did lose the toxicity level. So it remained toxic pretty much 8-9 weeks. So, like I said, if it's not approved, we'll do algicide treatments. At the most I can see us doing is possibly 4. I can't believe it would be that many. I'm thinking more like 2. If the experiment works, which should strip out the phosphorus out of the lake, then possibly we won't know how many algicide treatments we need, because we don't know the concentration of the phosphorus that's entering via Joe's Creek. We just don't know those kind of numbers right now. We're just going to have to start. This is what we have, and react accordingly. It's our goal to maintain a reasonable lake this year for recreational use. That's our job as a board, to maintain the common areas for recreational use and or enjoyment. The treatment monies this year come from the reserve fund. And if you know anything about reserve funds, I'll kind of a little bit right now, but you have a reserve fund to take care of your assets that either fail or wear out or need significant repair. So this revert, we have a professional company that comes in, they look at all of your assets, they say, this will last a year, that'll last 10 years, this will last 50 years, list it all, come up with a replacement cost and then how you need to budget to prepare for this thing to fail or wear out or whatever. So the condition in not only Lorraine, but Ponce was considered to be a repair. Since it's a repair, that should come out of the reserve fund. So the money to do the treatment for Lorraine will come out of this reserve fund. And I'll get to that in a minute, more about reserve fund. The administrative and the consultant expenses come from the operating account. That's what you'll see in that budget. I think we put in there about 7. I don't know if it'll be 7, but it's about 7. Okay, next challenge. This is the reserve fund. They come in and they look at how much money you put into your reserve fund account. And then they do all this kind of stuff to figure out, the replacement of all these different components. And they said, okay, you're 65% funded. We were when they did the study. They suggest or recommend you stay 70 to 100%. And that's all a risk thing, that if something fails sooner than it probably should, then you're ready for action. So what we did, since we were 65% and we had collected a lot of extra money from some delinquent homeowner accounts, we transferred $30,000 from our operating account to the reserve fund, which made that basically, well, it did make it 98% funded. So instead of being 65, it's 98. So we won't put it in. That is good. We're not planning on putting any money into the reserve fund this fiscal year. As it says, next fiscal year, the plan that they did this year says you should put about 24 in there next year. That may change when they do the study again this year. They may say you only need 10. They may say it's 30. I don't know. And that will happen after the fiscal year starts. Our other challenge was legal fees. Like this thing says, we budgeted $30,000. I guess in the past, the HOA have had budgets up to $65,000 or $70,000, but over the years we've been trying to cut that back. And anyway, sorry, Greg.
I was only a portion of that. I'm not the only attorney involved.
Anyway, this to date we're at about $36,500. I put a little graph here where that money went. It's probably hard to see, but on the right, the 42%. That is for lawyer fees we've spent for past due assessments and people with CC&R fines. When they end up getting fined for some reason, whatever. So 42% of our lawyer money went to that. 32% went to Lake Lorraine litigation. You remember I told you a few times we had some legal issues on Lake Lorraine where we had to not hire Greg but another lawyer to defend the way we were managing Lake Lorraine. That was 32%. 12%.
Gary, forgive me, if I may, the reason being is it has to do with a special niche law having to do with clean water. And that's not something that most association attorneys are dealing with. That's why the association needed to hire specialists.
Good, thank you. 12% went to CC&R fines only. That's a smaller percent. 10%, just general matters. That's stuff like when a house goes into foreclosure or somebody files bankruptcy or something like that. We need to call him and say, okay, review this or do this or whatever. And wait a minute, there was one last chunk. What was that? 4%. That was for past due assessments only. So the message here is, whether you agree with it or not, what I'm trying to point out here is we are spending legal fee money, I'll call it money for legal fees rather, that's better that way, for dealing with people, homeowners, that are not maintaining their property. You are paying those legal fees. You, not the person responsible. You are paying those. And we're not going to get them back. If it's a assessment issue, when we engage him, or we put a lien on a property, we will get that money back. It may be 20 years from now, but we should get it back. There's other stuff about ceasing our fines. The way our covenants are currently written, we cannot attach those costs to the responsible party. Now, it is our plan, as it was last year at the annual meeting, to submit a bylaw change so that we can do that. So you'll see that coming in the mail, and in June we will have one of these meetings again about the annual meeting, and that will be part of it, along with several other bylaw changes that Greg's not even aware yet. He'll have to help us put together. Right, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, next. Okay, I threw this slide up here just to tell you that what didn't go well last year. It's just didn't go well. And you probably all remember, if you've lived here a while, you remember Janelle that used to work here. She'd been here about 10 years. Really knew everything and knew everybody. And anyway, she moved on. And we ultimately had to hire somebody else. And we went through a process of finding someone else, and we interviewed, I don't know how many people we interviewed, 3 or 4, and we said, okay, you're the right person for us, and we hired that person. And I think that was in January or February of the year. And again, you know, the board, a lot of times, we depend on the office manager to kind of keep us out of trouble. Because, you know, most of these people have full-time jobs, so it's not like you can spend a lot of time dealing with the association. But anyway, things got rolling along. Unfortunately, in April, 1st of April, we had a CPA, Earl Davenport, that had been helping us for years. He was the treasurer for years, and even after he resigned because of his health, he would still go over to his house and talk to him about financial stuff and you know, just basic advice to keep our books in order. And he passed away in April. Really didn't realize that till about June, about how much that guy meant to us. This person we hired to be the office manager also orchestrated for us to get rid of our bookkeeper. So but it didn't go well. So then, as the year went on, we started getting some indicators that the books weren't being, let's say books weren't being kept, the accounting part of it. It wasn't like we were losing money, but it was just, stuff wasn't recorded right, and it just was a mess. So she was let go towards the end of last year, and we have not actually hired another person. Claire is now assuming that role, and she needs some training and she's learning quick. She's a smart gal, and she's really picking it up fast, and I'm really happy with what she's doing. So we will see where we go from here. Legal costs, I've already kind of gone through that, you know, went over budget. So anytime you go over budget, that's not good. And I've explained that. And then again, I've explained Lake Lorraine. So those are the kind of things that I would think didn't go well last year. Go ahead. Things that did go well. The page is even fuller. We really became aggressive, or got aggressive, on collecting money that people owed us. And most of this was on past due assessments. We had people that hadn't paid in 10 years, and we hadn't done anything about it. We hadn't, you know, I guess they're just trying to be the nice guy. And unfortunately, there's a statute of limitations. You can only go back 6 years. So we lost some money there. So anyway, in August, you can see what we had in August. 85 homeowners owed us over $500. And that total was $123,000 that people owed us. We started doing other things. We started following up and, you know, being consistent in our letters. We took some people to small claims court. We engaged the attorney. We started doing some stuff. So of those 85, we're now down to, of those 85, 62 are still on our list, but it doesn't go quickly. Those 62 owe us $74,000, but we're still working on it. I mean, it's just a long, tough process. A lot of people have abandoned their homes. They took off. The house is empty. The bank owns it. Nobody owns it. We can't find out who owns it. So, like I said, we do now have 73 people. So there are new ones to the list that weren't on the list above $500 in August. So we're still struggling with that, but we'll keep at it. We've taken 13 people to small claims court. Some of those have gone well, some of them, you win, but you don't win. You know, sometimes, you know, you get a judgment, but there's nothing that comes from the judgment. So, 22 people now on payment plans. I think in August we probably had 2. I don't know what the number was, but not many. So people have come forward, said, okay, we want to settle up. So we work with them and come up with a reasonable payment plan. And anyway, so that's gone pretty well. And like I said, we started that in August, and we will continue to do that. In fact, I think Monday I need to go to small claims court again for a couple. Anyway. Increasing banking costs. You know, we had Key Bank for years. Sounds reasonable, right? Get a bank. We found this other bank, and I don't know how we found it, but we found it. It doesn't matter how we found it, but it's another bank that specializes in HOAs. And the savings is thousands of dollars a year. Thousands in fees. Didn't know. We know now, and we're trained. And you probably all saw the notice about changing banks, saving thousands because of that. And it's a little painful to do it, but we'll get through it. The maintenance company we've had for the last 3 or 4 years have been great. I mean, the place really looked good in the common areas. They really did a great job. However, it came with a price, and you know, most of the time we just assume, well, that's the price. You know, that's how much it costs. So Kevin, congrats to you. Got some more companies online. They came out and looked at our stuff. Said, yeah, we can do the same thing. So we'll see how it goes. But so far they've started, and it looks pretty good out there. If you go look at the parks, and you know, they're just getting started. But the savings, I don't know how much it is, $20,000 a year, quite a bit. So, you know, we didn't get rid of the other guy because he's doing a bad job. It's just, you know, trying to save money.